Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Denver, Colorado. I'm so glad you could join me today. I have a fun card, another of the larger slimline cards, and it is a Thinking of You card. I need lots of those now, just to remind people that I am thinking about them in this crazy time when we can't see one another. And so let's just get started. Okay, here is my card. So in this design, I have used the beautiful Friendship, this gorgeous flower here, and then I needed something that was quite big and bold to match the size of this card, and I'm using this Thinking of You from Rooted in Nature. So those are the stamp sets I'm using. And let's see, on this one I'm using this flower, these leaves, and these leaves. And so what does it take to make this card? Well, I have my pieces here. I have, and I've already cut some of them to size, so you need, the way I'm doing mine is they're at 8 inches by 9 inches, and then scored and folded at the 8-inch side at 4, so that my finished card is 4 inches by 9 inches, and that fits perfectly in a business size envelope. And somebody wrote to me the other day and asked, do you mean a number 10? Yes, a number 10 envelope. And so then you also need, I did a large banner here, and this large banner piece is cut. This is Mossy Meadow, and this Mossy Meadow is cut 8 inches by 3 1/4, and then this one is the soft sea foam, and it is cut 7 3/4 by 3 1/8, because I wanted just the tiniest, slimmest border around here. Now what I did to get my banner tail, because I wanted a pretty good sized banner tail given the size of this card, what I did was I measured up from the bottom of the card 1.5 inches. Yep, I think so. What I did was on the green, on the Mossy Meadow, I measured up 1.5 inches from the bottom of the card. Now this one is 3 1/4. So if you put this along the edge of your grid paper like this, then you can measure up 1.5 inches, and 3 1/4 makes the center of this 1 5/8. So if you take your pencil and you put a mark up 1.5 inches and put your mark down on what you think is the center, and then measure across here at 1 5/8, you can get right to the center. Then it's a matter of drawing, for me, I draw a little line and cut that from the corner to my pencil mark on both sides. Then to get this banner tail to match, what you do is when you cut your paper, you set it down and just pull this edge up until you get that same angle, and you just draw a pencil line on your other piece and cut it out, and you will have perfectly matching banner tails. Okay, so on this, I'm going to change this design up only ever so slightly, and that is, I'll show you what I'm doing here. This is the outside of my card. I'm going to not put in this piece of ribbon. And this is that new ribbon that we've got that's in the holiday catalog. Gosh, it's gorgeous. And it's kind of an iridescent ribbon. And it is called Snowflake Splendor Ribbon. But watch what happens when that ribbon is laid across the darker green. That just came out so pretty. I decided I'd rather have only one piece of ribbon going across here and have it go across a little piece of the dark green, so it really shows it off. It almost fades here. So we have our card base that is 8 by 9, scored at 4 inches. Then we have our 2 pieces to make our banner. Oh, let me tell you about the other pieces that you need. Okay, the inside pieces are this piece, which measures 8 3/4 by 3 3/4. And so this piece is 1/4 of an inch on the inside. So this one is 8 1/2, pardon me, 8 1/2 by 3 1/2. And so those are the pieces for the outside and the inside. And then you need, this piece is 1/2 of an inch and cut long for the inside of card, this strip. And then I have another piece that is, it's 1/2 an inch by 3 1/4. So that's what we need. And then this is 2 pieces of scrap paper to make the rest of what I need. The stamping that we're going to do is going to be on these 2 pieces of scrap paper and on this piece of paper. And I'm doing all of my stamping today using my Stamparatus. I've got my Stamparatus set today to, first of all, stamp my flower. So I've just got a piece of paper here. This is actually a 1/4 sheet, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I set it up to go on my cushion here and go right up to the top and right to the edge of my cushion, and then put my magnet there. And then I'm using the ink that I'm using 3 inks, Mossy Meadow, I'm using Flirty Flamingo, and I'm using Mango Melody. So the first thing we're going to do is stamp this flower 2 times. So I have inked that up, and I'm going to stamp that flower. Then I'm going to take this piece of paper and I'm going to flip it around and set it here again. You set it up any way you'd like. It doesn't really matter, just so long as your paper is set up and you've got your flower here. So I'm going to ink up my flower again and stamp that down once on this piece of paper. And there we go. I've got my flower stamped twice. All right. Then there's not a die for, oh dear, I'm getting ink all over everything. There's not a die for this stamp. So this one needs to be fussy cut out. And I've already done mine just to save time for the video. Next, I need to put in my piece of soft seafoam, and then I have my stamp, Thinking of You from Rooted in Nature, which I've gotten the label all screwy on, but I want this to go into place right about here at a bit of an angle. So I'm going to put in my magnet, pick up my stamp. In fact, on this, I don't need this because this is not a photopolymer. So let me reset that. So I'm going to set this right along the edge of my ruler on my Stamparatus and reset this to right about here. Let's take a look at where it is on this card. And right about here looks right to me. Then I will let me wipe this down. I know it won't stamp or leave ink, but it just makes me crazy. So I'm going to pick up my stamp and I'm going to use my Mossy Meadow for this. Both of those stamps are kind of big, and I just don't like taking the extra chances not using the Stamparatus in case something needs to be re-inked, because invariably it seems like it does. There we go. Oh dear. That didn't stick to the door properly. So it is, I'm going to just drop it in place here, because that's where I'm going to want it to stamp. And I'm going to use that door to pick up that stamp, but good this time, and do my initial stamping that way. There we go. And see, it did need to be re-inked. Oftentimes if you put another stamp pad under the door, it supports it so you can get lots of good ink on your stamp. All right, let's stamp that again. Hold that in place and let that ink kind of get through. And pick that up. It's pretty good, but I think I'm going to do it one more time. Again, I want it to be nice and solid. So one more time. Thinking of you. There we go. And if you're not happy, say you've inked it a couple times, I always have my marker handy, and if I need to fill in a place or two where it didn't quite stamp down 100%, and that's me being very picky. 9 times out of 10, that would be plenty. But again, me being extra picky about how solid this image is. Okay, there we go. I think that's outstanding. All right, and this stamp set isn't a perfect outline. It's got, in the stamp itself, it's got like rough edges, and that's the way it's supposed to be. I think that is almost all of the stamping. The last bit of stamping we need to do, we don't need the Stamparatus, so let me move that out of the way. And I have mounted the little leaves for this beautiful friendship, these leaves here, on some blocks. And I have a little piece of scratch paper here, and what I have done is stamped this 3-leaf combination, and you'll see that it isn't perfect, and that's the way the stamp comes out. So I'm going to stamp this 3 or 4 times, and then I'm going to cut these out. Okay, and by the magic of what we do here, I have already cut mine out, so I'll bring those out. And what I did was I used a sponge dauber on my Flirty Flamingo pieces that I cut out, and I used that sponge dauber in the Mango Melody and put that little bit of orange around the outside of these flowers. And then I used my dauber back in the Flirty Flamingo and filled in. Now when you do this, one of the things that you can do is on your image is go ahead and add your, let me show you what I did here. Let me get some of that ink off of there. Pick up that Mango Melody and just kind of go around the edges of your stamped image. And when you do that, it's real easy then to cut out an image that's already got, feels like it's got sponging on the edges because you went around it like this. Then you can put it back in the Flirty Flamingo and fill the inside in just a little bit. I didn't like how stark white that was, so I filled in using my sponge dauber and then put an extra little bit of Mango Melody around the outside edges of the flower and a bit on the inside. And then you don't have to be so precise when you cut because you've got a shadow of color around there. And these I cut pretty much to the edge of the stamping, and I did that same thing with the leaves. I cut them right to the edge of the stamping. That is all of our stamping done, and so now all we have to do is put this card together. I did decide that in layering this piece on this piece to use Tombow because that's got such a tiny little margin that I want to be able to wiggle that in place to make absolutely sure I've got it right where I want it. So I'm using Tombow because it's so forgiving. It gives you that extra little time that you need to get this on here and manipulate it so that your margins are set up exactly the way you want them. And there we go. So that is now attached there. Now, let's see, my card base is here, which I've got some ink on here, but I think this is going to cover it, so I think I got saved by the bell here. So that's the way that is going to work, and the only thing that's raised on the front of this is the actual flower itself. Now I cut two flowers. Why? Because one flower on here didn't seem sufficient. It looks a little lonely. So what I did was used my snips and I cut out this large flower, but I cut it so that the shape of this flower made a lot of sense because I wanted to use that on the inside where it's going to show. This little piece of flower I can tuck under here and it fills that out, or I can set it up here and it absolutely makes sense without having to worry too much about the shape here. I can certainly get rid of that big ugly piece there. All right, so then it is a matter of laying this piece. I think I'll move my flower a little further up so that I can put this piece on here and put that ribbon on. So what I'm going to do is put some seal on this piece. And put that into place. I'm going to have it go all the way across this, and then I'm going to trim this piece off the back for a perfect fit. All right, now then I'm going to put some ribbon across this piece, and I have a piece cut. Isn't that just gorgeous? Oh my gosh, so pretty. So now I'm going to use my dot runner to add a little bit of glue to the back of that ribbon, and add some glue on the back side of this so I can lay my ribbon right across the center of this piece of green and anchor that on the back. Okay, so there is this piece ready to go. Now this I'm going to lay across here, and one of the things I'm going to do is take that smaller bunch of leaves and my Mossy Meadow ink and anchor a couple of leaves right about here for the bottom, so my flower will sit roughly there. And I think I'm going to add 3 this time, so I'm going to put one set right up here and one set right down in here. There we go. Now that's right where my flower is going to go, and that allows me to tuck this little piece of flower right underneath here, and I'm fine with this flower going off the edge of this card because it's going to go on here, and I think that's going to look very nice. So I'm going to glue these 2 pieces together. So I'm going to add a little bit of snail along the bottom here and get this flower placed, oh, maybe like that. Then I'm going to add some dimensionals to the back of the flower. I'm going to put one right where the 2 flowers go together, and that will help keep them together. Now I have my cut green leaves, and what I've done is used the edge of one of my dimensionals here and cut a thin strip. The edges on the mini dimensionals are quite large, so you can get several strips of thin dimensional material, and then I just peel off one side and cut it down and just lay it in the empty places here, and then I can grab those little edges when I need them, like here on the back of these leaves. So I want a little edge right in there, and one along this leaf, because those other ones are stamped down. So now I want these to be raised to give more dimension to the card. And that's how I did those leaves. And I'm going to speed up the video here and do the other 2 just in case I want to put them on. I have my leaves and my flowers attached, now I have a bow that I want to put on one side of this, and so I'm going to tie a small bow so I can attach it to the front of this. And I'm going to use a glue dot, or several glue dots. This ribbon is fairly stiff, so I have found that putting down several glue dots on it probably is the right idea. So first let me put it in place right here, and then I'm going to take another couple of glue dots and tuck them under the ends of the ribbon so that my ribbon stays in place. There we go. Isn't that just pretty? All right. Now I'm going to add some seal to the back of this piece. All right, now this piece is ready to go on the front of my card. And I'm going to try and get the borders similar here and put that into place. There we go. I think that is just so pretty. All right, now on the inside I have my two pieces here, and these pieces just need to be put together. So I'm just going to add my seal to the back of my white piece and put it on the Mossy Meadow piece that I've got here. And this is fairly important to get on here straight. The longer lines of this card, if you're off a little bit, will show more. So you want to be careful, and if need be, definitely use Tombow if that makes it a little, oops, I got this. To get this on the card and do it exactly right. Okay, so this piece is all but ready, and of course I did it out of order, which is fairly typical if you watch me. So I'm going to lay this down here, and I have my long piece to go across here that I need to add some seal to. And put that in place across this piece of card, leaving a little margin along the side. And then I can trim this piece off to fit. And then I have a nice long piece of this pretty ribbon to go on here, and I'm going to put some of my dot runner glue on the back of that piece of ribbon. and put that in place right over this green. Isn't that just gorgeous? Gosh, it's such a pretty ribbon, and it shows off its iridescence when it's on the dark background like that. Okay, so now I'm going to try and get this on and anchored in the back. This does not look straight to me. So setting this down straight, and like I said, because these lines are so long, you really see when it's straight and when it's not. Okay, so now I have this piece ready to go on the inside of my card. All right, there we go. And I have my flower that I cut, and I'm just going to add plenty of seal on the back of it. Put that right down here, but before I do that, I'm going to take my little leaves here and stamp a couple of those in place. And if I put my flower down here, then I may want a couple of those leaves right up here, and I may want a couple of those leaves coming right out down here. Okay, now I'm going to lay my flower across there, and there we go. Now all I have left to do is add a little bit of bling to the outside of this card, and what I used were these sequins. And these sequins came in a box with several other sequins, but I kind of like this dark one. And let's see if I can tell you what they are. Yes, they are Artistry Blooms adhesive back sequins. And they're just as pretty as they can be. And I'm going to put a couple of them like I did on this card, and I used one large one in the center of this flower, and then I used a few of these smaller ones on the small flowers, and then just kind of dotted around the card. So I put one down here, and I think that's plenty. Okay, there we go. There is my Thinking of You slimline card, and I think it's very pretty, and I'm really pleased with the way it came out, and I love this ribbon. You can see as it goes across the darker color just how pretty it looks. It just offsets it. Here it kind of disappears. So if I have to say between the two, I think I like this card a little bit better just because of that particular detail on the front. And the insides are exactly the same. And so that is my project for the day. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel. I do so appreciate it. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator, or you could join my team. It's always a good time to join Stampin' Up! The join offer is $125 worth of material for $99, and you start off with a 20% discount. My email and my contact information is below the video always, and feel free to give me a call if you'd like to chat about it. So I will be back soon with more cards, more projects, and more tips. Bye.